The GLP-1s, right? You've heard of so many of them that are out and available, the weight loss clinics where you get your injections weekly and this kind of thing. There's so many questions about the GLP-1s. And I have done at least two episodes, maybe even three in the past about the GLP-1s. But today I wanted to really focus on not only GLP-1 in general, but how you can increase it, boost it, get that working for you naturally without the needle, because it can be done. Yes, GLP-1 is so powerful. It helps with cravings, blood sugar, inflammation, belly fat, food, the proverbial food noise. It's powerful and potent. But here's what you may not know is that you can actually increase your own body's availability and release of this important peptide. Really, it's a peptide called the GLP-1. And you don't need to get a prescription. You don't need to go to a weight loss clinic. You can actually increase this naturally through quite a few different techniques and foods that are available. And so I'm gonna get kind of down and dirty in the nitty gritty. We're gonna talk about real science. We're gonna talk about data. We're gonna show you exactly how to raise GLP-1 naturally and why your gut, yeah, your gut, your microbiota is literally the control panel. It's the real nuance behind the GLP-1s. The gut is really powerful here. And we'll also talk just a teensy bit about the GLP-1 medications, the so-called injections, how they help, how they hurt, and why a lot of people are chasing that and how it can actually backfire. And I've certainly seen a lot of the worst case scenarios being a board certified physician for over 2 decades. It's been very interesting to me to see some really, I would say, unfortunate, sad, and really kind of bummer cases. I've seen plenty of them come through my practice and through different hospitals where I've worked over the years. And so it's not something to be taken lightly. There's certainly an indication for them medically in certain scenarios. I do occasionally prescribe them when it is prudent and necessary. I definitely don't reach for them as a first line. And if I do so, I typically go towards the micro dosing aspect, and I'll share a little bit about that. But let's talk first about what the heck GLP actually is, what it does. It's a simple peptide. Honestly, it stands for glucagon-like peptide. It's a hormone released primarily by gut cells, specialized gut cells called the L cells. And just think of it as your body's built-in metabolic supervisor, if you will. When it's working well, here's what it does. It helps your pancreas release insulin and do so appropriately after meals, right? It's very important that your body produce insulin and release it after meals so that your blood sugar doesn't skyrocket and cause this dangerous condition called ketoacidosis, hyperglycemia with ketoacidosis, which I'm super familiar with. I have two children with type 1 diabetes, which means they actually don't produce insulin. So it's been kind of an interesting journey. My second was diagnosed less than a year ago. And you know what, to be honest, because we were already familiar with my other child's illness and having the similar thing, she's made over 3 years now since her diagnosis and doing amazingly well. If you looked at her sugars, she has a CGM continuously, which is one of those continuous glucose monitors. Her blood sugar looks as good as mine, as does my son's, who was just diagnosed less than a year ago. He actually just got his A1C done, and it was 5.4, which would lead you to believe that he's not even diabetic at all because we have so tightly controlled his blood sugars, both with diet and, of course, he requires insulin as well. But what was amazing to me is that literally I put every effort into this in my own body. I monitor what I eat. I start my meals with protein. I don't even eat that many carbs. And if I do so at the end of the meal. I move my body after meals for 10 minutes minimum. And I'm doing all the things. And my A1C without diabetes is also 5.4. And so he has rivaled that. And his A1C is the same as mine. And I've never even had diabetes. So it's amazing that we've been able to control it so well, and we've done it through natural means. In addition to, of course, he has to get some insulin because his body doesn't produce it. But I was just so incredibly grateful and happy and pleased, and just feeling lots of gratitude when we just got his blood work done about 2 weeks ago. And literally every lab he has shows how healthy he is, how outstanding he's doing from a health perspective. And if you looked at them, any physician, or even if you threw it over to AI and said, "Hey, analyze this data," they wouldn't even know he's a type 1 diabetic because he's done so well. And so, in any case, this GLP-1 is literally one of these potent peptides, not too dissimilar to other peptides your body makes, like insulin itself is a peptide actually. But GLP-1, what it does when it's working well in your body, it actually helps your pancreas to release insulin after a meal so that you don't get this hyperglycemia issue, which can be very problematic. And you might consider it this way. I mean, blood glucose, right? Sugar, extra sugar in your blood is sticky and it can stick to things. And that's what we actually measure. The so-called hemoglobin A1C is basically the hemoglobin portion that gets glucose stuck to it, if you will. The glycosylated, in fact, it's called glycosylated hemoglobin, or basically in simple terms, the glucose sticks to it and to basically all cells to some degree. And it kind of causes inflammation, basically. It gets things sticky. They stick to things. They can plug things up. They don't work well. It actually damages the kidneys. That's why diabetics over the years can sometimes result needing hemodialysis, which is an artificial way to filter the blood because their kidneys don't work, right? Because the glucose over time has injured the kidney cells. It can injure the blood vessels throughout the body, make them more prone to having circulation issues, which is why in stages people will lose digits, toes, sometimes whole appendages because their sugar hasn't been well controlled. They can be more likely to have stroke and heart disease and all these things because that blood sugar is sticky and it sticks to everything and it ages you rapidly unless you control it. Like my son, my daughter are doing. My grandfather, who had diabetes, he lived until about 95 years old. He never lost his vision. He never lost any toes or fingers or digits of any kind. He did very well. He never required hemodialysis. He was the picture of health for a diabetic guy that had diabetes for the overwhelming majority of his life. And he's been an inspiration to me and to my kids. And so here's the thing, when GLP is working properly, it signals your pancreas to release insulin, right? Appropriately so after meals. It also reduces the excess glucagon, so your liver won't make extra sugar into the bloodstream. Glucagon is kind of a different hormone that actually creates, if you will, glucose into the blood. This is actually a rescue medication for people who have diabetes that their sugar goes too low. You can actually do an injection of glucagon, which raises blood sugar. Many people who are diabetics or have family members who are diabetics are familiar with this. And the other thing that GLP-1 can do is it slows your gastric emptying. So in other words, this is kind of I would say one of the side effects or actions, if you will, of GLP-1 that the medications out there are utilizing to help people to lose weight because they feel very, very full because the gastric emptying, or in other words, the stomach empties slower than normal. And so you feel full earlier and longer and don't really feel like eating. So this is sort of a side effect that is pursued by the manufacturers who make all of these medications, although they do it at a significantly higher dose than what you would be releasing in your body. And sometimes this can have disastrous side effects, like at the extreme, what's called gastroparesis, which is literally the paralysis of your stomach. So you can't really move the food along into the small intestine and you feel extremely nauseous all the time. You're vomiting, you feel terrible. And I see people like this sadly almost daily in the hospitals because of overuse of these medications. So it is a very dangerous potential side effect, and thankfully, it doesn't happen all the time, but to some degree, it is actually leaned on as an important side effect that people want, or I should say the drug companies want, because this is what makes it effective, right? It decreases the gastric emptying, it slows down the motility so that you feel full earlier, sooner, and longer, and then you don't really want to eat. But it can also be a super hard thing to live with. I've had family members who are diabetics, extended family, I should say, not my kids, but extended family that has the other type of diabetes, the preventable one called type 2 diabetes, who have been on these medications, and they literally feel like nauseous all day long. They never want to eat. And so, yeah, big surprise. They lose weight, and these things have helped them control their diabetes to some degree, but it is definitely a potential issue when given in such significantly higher doses in the injections, the formulations that are out there. But here's the thing, when GLP-1 is working well, you actually can get some beneficial side effects, right? Obviously, you're less hungry, you eat less, you have less of an urge to snack, you get better control of your glucose overall, especially after meals. But here's the thing, a big part of this whole GLP-1 issue has nothing to do with, what I would call willpower, right? There's a whole nuance behind it. It's actually biology. It's your gut that really plays into this because when you feed certain gut microbes that are already there in your intestinal tract, they can actually produce things that help you, that help your body. These are called short chain fatty acids or SCAFAs, the short chain fatty acids. Some of these, probably the most well known is butyrate. You have butyrate, propionate, and acetate, which are actually produced by the gut microbes, right? These microorganisms, mostly bacteria, they can produce these when fed fiber. When you eat the appropriate fiber, you can actually make these short chain fatty acids, which actually interact with those very L cells in the gut that actually make you release your own GLP-1. So eating enough fiber in your diet, feeding your gut microbiota, those bacteria that naturally live there in your gut, they can actually produce this chemical called butyrate, propionate, and acetate, or the so-called short chain fatty acids that will interact with those intestinal cells that I shared earlier, the L cells, which actually release the GLP-1 naturally. And this is one of the clearest, simplest links between having good gut health and having good appetite control with your own naturally produced and released GLP-1 through the health of your gut. So this, don't underestimate the power of your gut. Like gut health is literally one of my 5 major pillars that I talk about each and every day when I'm sharing about how to get healthy naturally, how to avoid the 7 out of 10 of the most common causes of death that are out there worldwide. One of the biggest levers is actually gut health. And I shared 3 or 4 chapters about it in my book, my best-selling book, Preventable 5 Powerful Practices to Avoid Disease and Build Unshakable Health, which is available right now on Amazon. You can literally order it. It'll be at your house in 2 days. And overwhelming amount of information on gut health is in there because it is so key, so powerful, so crucial to getting your hormones regulated. And it works really well to help you with your own natural GLP-1 production through these short chain fatty acids or the scaffolds that are produced by the gut microbiota, the bacteria, when they are fed fiber. When we eat plenty of fiber, plenty of veggies, plenty of healthy fruits, we actually supply the fiber. We can even add fiber. I recommend most people actually add fiber to their diet because most are not getting the minimum 30 grams. And I would say between 30 and 60 grams, probably aim for 40 to 50 a day, which most Americans are getting probably 10, maybe 15 grams max. And we are way under what we should be eating with respect to fiber. And this is one of the most key, critical, and crucial ingredients to having amazing gut health, which can actually boost your GLP-1 through this mechanism that I just shared, through those cells receiving the short chain fatty acids and using them to help release the natural GLP-1 that your body actually makes all by itself. So if your microbiome is not super healthy, it's somewhat depleted, doesn't have a lot of diversity, you might have what's called dysbiosis, which is really common, bloating, you might have episodes of constipation mixed with diarrhea, you might just get some cramping. All of these things are super common in today's society, sadly super common, but importantly, really easy to fix. Like your gut can get healthy literally over a matter of a couple of weeks' time, and you can literally increase your fiber intake. I would say do a little at a time. Don't go from 0 to 30 grams a day. You're going to get pretty bloated. But if you increase slowly and over time, you can get your health of your gut up significantly so that you can release your own GLP-1 and have all those amazing benefits I shared earlier. Because if your microbiome is not quite optimized, it's usually because it's got low diversity, right? We've talked about this before, meaning you don't have as many different types of healthy organisms there. And you usually, part of the biggest cause is a low fiber diet. Also, eating the standard American SAD diet, right? The ultra processed food diet, which feeds the not so awesome bacteria, right? The Firmicutes that you probably heard about. It feeds the not so healthy bacteria, which don't give you those short chain fatty acids and help with the natural release of GLP-1s. And so your GLP-1 that your body produces from those intestinal cells and releases them in response to the short chain fatty acids and eating a meal, they don't get released to a significant degree, and you're not optimizing that lever that is already available to you. So here's the thing. Can this be fixed? Can we fix these signals? How do we do this? Well, I'm going to just quickly share with you 7 natural GLP-1 levers that will help you sort of feed the natural GLP-1 factory, if you will. And so if you want to increase it naturally, the first is what I've already quickly shared about is fiber. You got to increase the fermentable fiber because it's literally upstream of those short chain fatty acid. I would call them, you can call them messengers, if you will, that the gut microbiota bacteria produce and cause the intestinal cells to release the GLP-1. So prebiotic fibers like inulin, resistant starches, These are super helpful. You can actually, I actually was adding inulin to my smoothies for a while because I wasn't getting enough veggies and fruits for a certain time period where we just didn't have access to a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. Now that we are back in the US of A and have more access to that, while I'm traveling, I don't always have great access. So I take inulin with me and you can mix it up with a smoothie or just in water. Really, I have a couple of, I would call them gut boosting drinks that I drink throughout the day that are so helpful that actually have some prebiotic fibers in there as well. And you can also add things like inulin, or you can just eat a whole bunch more of healthy veggies and fruits, beans, lentils, chia, flax, whatever it is you like to add fermentable fibers to your diet, which can significantly help with the natural production and release of GLP-1s. It also will lower your blood sugar. It actually has been shown to improve overall blood sugar balance. And mechanistically, as I shared about the short chain fatty acids, which are released from your healthy gut microbiota, these are strongly linked to that release of GLP-1. And this is not just my words. This has been studied extensively. There was an article by G. Tolhurst entitled "Short Chain Fatty Acids Stimulates Glucagon Like Peptide 1." And it's been all over PubMed, cited thousands and thousands of times because now that GLP-1s are in the press and media and things, people want to learn about them. And so what we've learned is that the natural production and release of them is directly related to the short chain fatty acids, which are released, secreted, and produced by the gut microbiota, the bacteria that are the healthy ones that we feed. We have the control over this by our diet. And so here's the thing, practical steps starting tomorrow. Here's what you could do. You could add one prebiotic food daily. This is the fibrous stuff. Prebiotics are fibers, right? It could be lentils, it could be chickpeas, it could be the greenish bananas, asparagus, onions, garlic, Brussels sprouts, which are kind of my favorite. I love Brussels sprouts. Add one of these things to your diet daily. This is a source of fiber. Don't overdo it, because if you eat a huge plate of Brussels sprouts and you've never had them before and you're usually eating processed foods, you're going to get real bloated and you're going to be like, screw that, Dr. Thomas, you don't know what you're talking about. I felt like crap. Well, of course you did, because you went from 0 to 60. You got to go a little bit at a time. So gently add one prebiotic food source daily, fibrous source, whether it be a little bit of lentils, a little bit of chickpeas, maybe some greenish bananas. Those are, oh, I love those in Hawaii, especially asparagus, Brussels sprouts, onions, garlics, et cetera, et cetera. Also consider adding a resistant starch. This is kind of the pre-cooked, already cooked rice or maybe potatoes or something, yams or sweet potatoes, whatever your source of starch is. You cook it and then you cool it, throw it in the fridge, and then you eat it after you reheat it. This makes a regular starch into a resistant starch. And the important part of this is it feeds the gut bacteria much better, much more differently. It doesn't raise the blood sugar significantly. Like if you cook some potatoes primarily tonight, first night, and you cook them and you eat them, that's going to raise your blood sugar significantly. But if you cook them tonight, cool them, keep them in the fridge overnight, and then reheat them tomorrow, it actually turns the carbs into a resistant starch, which actually feeds the gut. Like, it's pretty cool. And it's actually been kind of fun for us because we'll make like a big pot of rice and then we'll eat it, from the fridge, cooled, and then of course warmed up over the course of the week. And this has been a great form of a resistant starch. And I've seen it firsthand in my kids, especially those that have, the two that have diabetes. It doesn't hardly raise their blood sugar in comparison to how when we used to cook a big vat of rice and eat it that first night. We actually do differently now. We cook it and reheat it a bunch during the course of the week. And literally one big pot of rice will last us the whole week, and it doesn't raise the blood sugar as much because of this resistant starch phenomenon. And besides that, besides being better for the blood sugar balance, it actually feeds the gut, feeds those gut microbes that use it to produce the short chain fatty acids, which will help us by naturally producing, releasing the GLP-1 that we already have in our body. So that's lever number one. Lever number two is protein timing. So here's the thing. Protein is one of the most reliable and meal-based triggers for the release of natural GLP-1 that you already have in your body. In fact, a high protein meal will increase GLP-1. And this was shared in a study called High Protein Intake Stimulates Postprandial GLP-1 and PYY. So this has been studied extensively. A high protein meal, which of course I always recommend we start with protein first, prioritize protein, start every meal with protein, because naturally it satiates us. It provides more satiety. So we, generally speaking, will eat less calories. But it also, one of the reasons how it can do this is because it stimulates your own body's natural GLP-1. So boom, done. At the meals, each and every meal, make sure you start with protein and fiber. That's what I would recommend. Eat your protein and veggies first. And here's the thing. If you struggle with this, you're having challenges with this, one of the things you can consider is adding a protein load. You could even call it a preload, if you will, somewhere between 15 and 30 grams of protein. You could even do that right before your main meal. Like if you want to throw in a protein smoothie or something, you're already going to have significant protein intake, which is going to satiate you, so you'll eat less at the meals. I usually only do this maybe once a day. I have a protein smoothie. I typically do about 30 grams because I'm specifically trying to keep my protein intake at about 150 grams a day, which is quite a lot. Hard to do with 3 meals a day. That means 50 grams at every meal. And usually I try to shoot for at least 30. But to get that 150, I usually have to throw in a 30-gram or so protein smoothie, if you will. I do whey isolate and also branched chain amino acids. And this can help you because when you do add the protein, you're going to be less hungry. You're going to be less likely to want a snack. You're going to be less likely to want to have a huge meal if you've already sort of preloaded with protein. Like I said, I probably do this once a day because I'm just trying to get in enough of the protein over the course of the day to hit 150 grams. And I would suggest any average American or any person around the world really could benefit from approximately 100 grams a day of protein. Which is going to be, ideally about 1 gram per 1 pound of lean body weight that you're shooting for. My lean body weight goal is 150. And so I try to shoot for about 150 grams of protein today, which is hard to do unless you add a supplement. If you have questions on what are the better supplements, is it going to be a vegan? Is it going to be a protein source from whey or something branched chain amino acid or something like that? Feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to share with you what I am using. Which has worked well for me and thousands of others that I've shared it with. But make sure to start your meal with protein. So simple, so important. And it matters because when you do this, you naturally increase your GLP-1. And also, what's cool about this, not only will you eat less at that meal, but you will also not feel prone to grazing. The so-called grazing where you just kind of eat all day long, never stop eating, and you snack around the clock, including at night. Well, if you, late night while you're watching a movie, last night it was funny. I don't know, we were watching, I guess the new Percy Jackson series is now out. And so I was with my kids and they wanted to watch an episode. And so I was like, yeah, sure, sure, sure. And it was late and I wasn't hungry at all, but I was just sipping on some water, some carbonated water with a little lemon juice in there because I just kind of like the little zing. And we ate dinner like at 6 p.m., maybe even before. I think my son was ready with it by about 5 p.m. He had already cooked it and we had finished eating by 6. And so we were up a little late because my kids were out in town at gymnastics. And so by the time they got home, it was already pretty late and they wanted to watch this episode, which I was like, sure, whatever. You don't have school tomorrow, do it. And I wasn't hungry because I had a bunch of protein with my meal, even though naturally one would have wanted to snack because you're up late, but I didn't feel the need to. Like there was a day where I used to eat a bowl of ice cream every single night, like literally every night. I haven't done that in probably 10 years because I got my gut healthy. And when your gut is healthy, one of the things it does for you is like I just shared, it releases GLP-1, which makes you not crave or feel like you need to graze all day long. You actually get satiated with your meals because not only do you have appropriate levels of GLP-1 from your healthy gut, but you're also eating protein. So this for me has been a game changer. So that's lever number 2, protein first. Lever number 3, healthy fats. Here's the thing. Fat is not the devil, right? It's not the enemy. I did 2 or 3 podcasts on this. Oh gosh, maybe 100 podcasts ago, because I feel so strongly about this that fat has been villainized over the years as the cause of heart disease. It is not. Inflammation is the cause of heart disease, which primarily comes from an ultra processed foods diet. And so healthy fats like olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, they can actually stimulate GLP-1 release via gut receptors. Olive oil in particular has been studied extensively and been shown to increase the secretion of GLP-1 and the satiety hormones. In fact, there was a study recently which was done, and I'm going to try to pull that up for you because I was actually pretty impressed with it. And it was called Dietary Fat Appears to be Responsible for the Fat-Induced Release of GLP-1 in Humans. And this was a couple of years ago. This was out of the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. And basically, in summary, it stated that healthy fats actually are responsible for the GLP-1 release in humans to a great degree. And so what they had done is they took some volunteers, they gave them different meals, and one group of them got healthy fats, and the main outcomes were the release of GLP-1. And what they found was that they said that the GLP-1 release can be fully explained by the olive oil induced secretion of GLP-1. And they were astounded because they also looked at a different fat called oleic acid. Um, well, actually, that was the primary ingredient, never mind, in the olive oil. But the butyrate alone did not stimulate the significant change in hormone secretion, but the olive oil derived oleic acid seemed to be fully responsible for the olive oil induced GLP-1 and CCK secretion. So it's really interesting. This has been something that's been kind of a hot topic because not only, like I mentioned, is protein profound, important, and should be prioritized, but healthy fats as well because they can actually increase the natural production and release of GLP-1. So super cool stuff, American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. So what I would say that we could immediately do with this is if we do have fat in our diet, make sure it's the healthy kind, right? The kind that could actually cause the release of GLP-1, which is things like olive oil, for example, extra virgin olive oil. Use that as your salad dressing. Maybe throw a little lemon juice in it or something, or a little balsamic vinegar. Like don't do the dressings that are readily available because even though they might be called olive oil dressing, I promise you, you read the ingredients, you'll be surprised. Olive oil will be like the third to fifth ingredient, and the first and second and third will all be some kind of super highly ultra processed seed oil, whether it be canola oil or soybean oil or what have you. These are all not to the good oils. They burn dirty, they cause inflammation. You don't want that. You want the natural, minimally processed that's such as olive oil and avocado and coconut oil. So pair your fat with protein and fiber. This is kind of the solid, well-known diet worldwide called the Mediterranean diet, which is based upon healthy proteins and healthy fats. Like if you go to Europe, really any place, they're always using extra virgin olive oil that is locally produced. And they pride themselves in it. And you can get the stuff that's literally produced within a couple of miles of your local restaurant. It is so cool. And they are using this like crazy with their meal, right? There's always a source right on the table. Olive oil, you can also get some balsamic. You can dip your food in it. You can add it for your dressing. Like it's super readily available and it's amazing. Like I'm not at the point yet that I'm doing spoonfuls of this to get my fat in. I just like to have it with meals, but there are biohackers out there that are literally spooning this stuff in their mouths at meals. And I'm just saying I'm not really there yet. I love to just enjoy these things with my food. Like I put extra virgin olive oil on my salads, and I love it. But here's the thing, this will also increase natural GLP-1 secretion. All right, that's lever three. Lever four is exercise. Yes, movement, my favorite, the movement snacks that I love to share about. And I did last week in the holiday episode where we talked about how to not gain weight is this exercise-induced thermogenesis. And when you do exercise, this also improves GLP-1 naturally. In fact, there was a recent article it was entitled Exercise and Glucagon Like Peptide. And it actually explained how exercise can improve GLP-1 secretion and decrease the resistance to that. And so it helped the study groups both increase the production and make them more sensitive to it. So it worked better. And it was simple exercise in the fashion that I talk about all the time, 150 minutes of zone 2 cardio, which literally can be accomplished by 10-minute walking episodes after each meal. You're going to be at 30 minutes a day. You do that 5 days a week. Why not 6 or 7? But shoot, you could do 210 minutes a week of zone 2 cardio by just walking for 10 minutes after meals. Like we all got time for that. We can do that. Just don't jump on the TV or on your email. Just go for a short walk. It's been a game changer. Or do it as a movement snack and throw on some music and do a little dance party with your kids or grandkids or whoever's around, or just do it alone, right? It's super fun. There's a recent study that talked about dancing and how it was as effective as any other zone 2 cardio that you could do at a gym. Like so cool, so simple, so fun. Just move your body after meals. Literally game changer. So think of movement as making GLP-1 not only get secreted and increase, but make it work better. Make it work better because you have decreased resistance to it. And this can be done simply with movement. All right, lever number five, we're getting to the tail end here. Sleep and circadian rhythm also will help GLP-1. So here's the deal. If you're not sleeping, 7 hours a night, if you're burning the candle at both ends like I used to 20 years ago, I literally slept 4 to 6 hours a night, maybe 5 on average. I was challenged with this. I was not getting appropriate GLP-1 secretion. I was snacking all the time. Well, here's why, because I wasn't sleeping well. In fact, this has been well studied. This is not new stuff. They even did a study back, gosh, more than 10 years ago in 2013 that was entitled Acute Sleep Deprivation Delays Glucagon Like Peptide Release Glucagon GLP-1. And it was very interesting. They had only 3 nights of sleep deprivation. 3 nights, as short as 3 nights of about 5 hours per night, significantly decreased the amount of GLP secretion. And guess what? These people we're snacking, like no joke. Like, and you know this if you've been up all night or you had to do a big project or you've been working the night shift like I still do occasionally, like you get snacky. Like the next day, it's just bizarre. All during the shift, if you're up at night, you get snacky, and normally you wouldn't be eating at night. But what happens is your hormones get totally out of whack. And one of the reasons is the GLP-1 is not being released effectively, and you're having the exact opposite hormones being released, like the ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. And so here's the deal. If you get appropriate sleep, shoot for 7 to 8 hours, or 7.5 to 8.5, or 7 to 9, whatever works for you. Everybody's a little bit different. My goal is always about 7 because I've always been kind of a short sleeper, and if I can get 8, like gravy, like on a weekend, I can often sneak in 8 hours. It is amazing. And here's the thing: the other thing that boosts this GLP-1 naturally, besides appropriate sleep, is just the signal method, right? Getting outside in the morning light, having that set your circadian rhythm. Make sure your bedtime is consistent, it's routine, it's think of your kids like you put them on a schedule. We as adults need to be on a schedule because when we are, our body recognizes that and it gets into the groove, and the hormones are released naturally and normally at the appropriate times. And one of those is the GLP-1 peptide, which our body can release. And it can literally could be considered part of a circadian orchestra, if you will. And the sleep helps get it released appropriately and significant amounts. And it's a simple lever. Make sure you prioritize sleep. And so if you need more info on that, read my book or check out some podcasts I've done. I've done several on sleep because it can be your superpower. It's been mine of late, and it has been just astounding the benefits that have come from sleep. And it's actually been the thing that in a lot of clients that I've worked with who are doing all the things, right? They have a good diet, they're eating whole foods, they're exercising, they're going to the gym, they're doing resistance training, with weights and things, and they're doing all the things. They're eating healthy, they're using the appropriate supplements, and they still can't seem to lose that stubborn weight. And many times the reason for that is their sleep has been lacking. They're not getting quality sleep. And so in my practice and my work with clients, that is always one of the pillars we focus on is sleep, because sleep can be your superpower. It can increase the natural GLP-1. It will also keep the hormones balanced more appropriately so you're not hungry and grazing all the time. And it can be done simply, easily, and of course, cheaply for free, right? You just need to get appropriate sleep. So if you need more on that, message me and I can send you over some podcast link. I've even recently done a whole free course on sleep that you can have access to as well. So important, so powerful. Make sleep your superpower. All right, rounding this out, we're going to talk just super quick about what's called bile acids, the so-called gut liver axis. The reason I want to talk about this is because the bile acids, most of us just think about them as something that digests fat, right? They're kind of like hormone signals. They have certain receptors. There's one called the TGR5, which is a receptor that works through this signaling pathway, but the important thing to remember that it can stimulate GLP-1 release all by itself and influence blood sugar homeostasis. And so the cool thing about this is the ways that you get this gut liver axis working for you are things we've already talked about. Adequate dietary fat, right? Not this not this like zero fat. Remember when I lived through this, maybe many of you did as well, but we had this period in the 80s, maybe 90s as well, where everything was low fat this, low fat that. We thought that was healthy, but the problem was that we were having, as a replacement, significant sugar. And we really got into this conundrum where we were excessively having sugar and carbs in a low fat setting, which is kind of not a good scenario to be in, because we found that we were getting so many calories, we were becoming overfed but undernourished because everything just had too much sugar in it. And sugar basically doesn't have a lot of nutritive value, right? And so we were overfed, undernourished. Our body was recognizing the fact that we were getting all these calories but not getting enough nutrients, and so craving more, and we were eating more and more. And the big food was loving it because we were buying more snack food because it was triggering that craving, right? And so one of the things that can help us so much support this, and this is through this bile acid gut liver axis, is when we have adequate dietary fat, which we talked about earlier through olive oil, extra virgin, as well as coconut oil, avocado oil, which I always use for cooking because it has a high smoke point, and having appropriate fiber, because you know what fiber does? It actually binds to these bile acid pools. We can also increase this process through having good diversity of our gut microbiota, right? Because the microbes can modify these bile acids. So In real life, this is how the rubber meets the road is through a Mediterranean style diet, which is through healthy fats like olive oil, having healthy protein, having appropriate veggies and fruits, high fiber, minimum 30 grams a day. So you got to take a look at this. Many of us need more, but go slow, right? Don't do a giant plate of Brussels tonight. Like maybe do a couple of them. And then the next day, do a few more and kind of spread it out throughout the day. Increase your fiber intake over time. Make sure you're getting enough protein. This will support this whole, what I like to call the gut liver axis, and you will increase naturally the GLP-1. All right, here's the last one. Lever number 7, stress in the gut brain axis. So access. Chronic stress can shift your gut motility, your microbiome composition. It can make you have a less diverse gut health, and you can get more of the not so helpful bacteria and organisms when your gut is not healthy. And it makes this whole balance of hormonal signaling go awry because the stress promotes inflammation, promotes cortisol, which jacks up this whole sequence and the whole milieu, right, of signaling pathways, hormones, and the like. And so you got to make sure that you are optimizing stress. And so I know easier said than done. I have lived with and do live with a significant amount of stress coming from, family stressors, work stressors, illness, relatives that have severe disease and cancer and all kinds of stuff that's happening in our lives. We've had lots and lots of stress come at us. But what I've noticed is that on a day to day, you can actually shift it pretty readily through simple things like breath. Breath work and breathing is literally game changing. It's simple. It doesn't take a lot of time. If you can get out of that sort of sympathetic fight or flight, then GLP-1 will be produced and released effectively because when you're in that, it is not working well, right? In fact, you're going to be, when you're stressed, what do many of us, including me, do? We sort of stress eat. We eat comfort foods. We eat ice cream like I used to. And so here's some practical things that can simply be applied to each and everyday life. Try to take a couple of minutes, maybe at least one, but I would say if you can do 2 or 3, like this is golden. One of the easiest ways to do this before you eat, take a couple of breaths and say a prayer or grace or gratitude, or just close your eyes and have a little bit of a meditative moment. If you're with family, we like to do this. We do a prayer just to say grace and thanksgiving for the meal that we have. Um, and we give thanks, gratitude. And I like to take a couple of deep breaths before meals. Just be mindful. Be mindful about the food in front of you, those who prepared it. Be grateful. Like it doesn't take a lot of time, maybe 1 minute, maybe 2 or 3. Try to practice that before each and every meal. Have a little mindful moment, whether it be gratitude or just appreciation for the meal, for the people who made the meal, whatever that is, maybe for yourself who made the meal, whatever. But take a couple of moments and just connect with your food, your company, who's there, yourself. A couple of deep breaths before meals. And try to eat without the screens, because if you got the screens on, you're staring at your phone, you're staring at the TV, Netflix, whatever it is, and it distracts you, and so you're just kind of like shoveling, as my mom would say, stop shoveling your food. And you'll start to take each and every bite more with purpose. You'll savor, you'll appreciate the food. And I'll just tell you, for me, it's been a game changer. Like slow down. And one of the things I have this funny memory. My grandfather, who's now passed on several years ago, he was amazing at this. He was the one that was diabetic into his 90s, lived a full life. Diabetes didn't slow him down at all. But one of the things he did, which each and every meal, is he took time to thank his wife, my grandmother, who made the food, to connect with his food. And he chewed like a rabbit. Like each bite would take like a minute of chewing. Like it was insane. Like I'm not saying you got to chew every bite for a whole minute, but like he was the singular example that I've had in my life of like just enjoying, savoring, appreciating. And he was healthy and thin and lean his whole life. And he was a diabetic. Like he didn't gain weight. He was well controlled with his blood sugars, and he lived, like I said, to 90 plus, I think just about 94, 95 years old. And one of the things he did was he was mindful and connected with each and every meal. He chewed it well. He was never in a hurry. He was literally never in a hurry. And I think we can take a great lesson from the Europeans here. They'll literally sit down, they'll eat for like 2, 3 hours. They're not in a hurry. They slow down, they connect, they chit chat, they laugh, they joke, they just have a great time. And this is something we've tried to emulate in our family. We do at least one meal a day. Often we'll do more than that, but we at least do dinners together, and we chit chat, we joke, we laugh, we share, we give gratitude, like all the different things. And it's just super fun. We have a great time with it. And there's actually been research that in the last 2, 3 years that has showed this, that if you can take time to appreciate your meals, to eat with family, that this will actually get you healthier. Like just the simple act of eating together with real people and being present and connected, like it's literally game changers. Here's the simple thing: eat a couple meals a week if you can, 3 to 5, or maybe even daily if you're able to, with family or friends. Have some slow breathing before meals, maybe a minute, maybe 2 or 3 of gratitude, mindfulness. Just slow the heck down. And then after meals, go for a short walk. I know this is simple. It sounds ridiculous, but it is so powerful. So powerful. So I'm going to stop there because, I don't like to podcast for hours and hours on end. I was going to share a little bit about some nuance and about the GLP drugs and some issues with them. And I've podcasted about this many times before. And so you can take a look at previous episodes or you can message me. I can give you some details on it. But I just want to end this with a quick share of how powerful your own natural body's production and release of GLP-1 can be, because I think right now, present day, we're in a society that looks for a quick fix, right? We're looking, hey doc, what's the one thing I can take? What's the one med? What's the one supplement? What's the one thing? And there are definitely things that are out there that can help us, and there is some indication for these medications in certain, groups of people, and I do prescribe them occasionally, but it should not be our go-to first line for everybody, everything, all the time. Like I just think it's overused. There's way too much emphasis when there's so much we can do simply and on purpose. And it is reachable and attainable, like protein first meals. We talked about this, increasing our fiber, adding healthy fats like olive oil into our meals, walking after meals, right? Just getting out there for 10 minutes, sleep like it matters, like our life depends on it, prioritizing our sleep and getting those signals in appropriately, getting out into some morning sun. Like this is so important, so critical, so simple, and it is available to all of us. So just want to share with you in closing that you've got this. We can do this. It's not impossible. You don't have to go to one of these weight loss clinics. Like if you need help and you need a guide, you need me to help you along the path, and you want to have your GLP optimized and working well, you want to lose weight, like I can help you with that. I've been doing this for decades. I love to help people get their hormones balanced, and I'm just so happy to share. In fact, I have a hormone masterclass, a webinar coming up December 29th. It's going to be powerful. It's going to be amazing. I'm so pumped about it because I'm going to share about what happens to men and women in my age and middle age and what the heck's going on. You're not broken. You don't need fixing, but you could benefit from optimization. So be on the lookout for that. I'll drop more in upcoming posts and emails. Just make sure you're following me at Dr. Thomas Hemingway on Instagram, Thomas Hemingway, MD on Facebook, ThomasHemingway.com. You can reach out to me there if you want to get set up to work with me. You can just go over to my website, ThomasHemingway.com, or over the holidays, maybe you can grab my book, grab a few copies of it, grab a couple dozen, send them to all your friends and family. Like literally it'll show up in 2 days, and it's powerful. Preventable, 5 powerful practices to avoid disease and build unshakable health. I hope you'll grab that. I hope you'll take it with you and meet me in San Diego. I'll be at the Hard Rock Hotel the 22nd through 25th of January in sunny San Diego. I hope you'll join me. Check it out, Align, ALIGN, eventslive.com. I hope you'll be there. If you need a discount code, message me. We might have a couple left. And until next time, happy holidays, happy new year, and a big aloha.